this country will do very well, and in particular it will do well for business. Business has done very well. The Dow went from 66 to 10,000 plus in the 100 years of the 20th century, and we had 2 world wars and nuclear bombs and flu epidemics, and you name it, Cold War. There are always problems in the future. There are always opportunities in the future, and in this country the opportunities have won out. I envy the baby that's being born today in the United States. I mean, I think on a probability basis, that's the luckiest individual that's ever been born, and I think that they will do very well in life in all kinds of ways on a probability basis, better than existed when I was born. This country has certainly benefited enormously over the decades, by immigration. We started out with 4 million people in 1790. China had 290 million at that time, just about what we have now. Europe had well over 75 million. So you had 70 times as many people in China. You had probably 20 times as many people in Europe. We had the same degree of intelligence in China or in Europe as we had here. We had similar natural resources, and now this country has well over 30% of the GDP of the world. So it's a pretty remarkable story, and how to attribute or how to quantify the various components that entered into that is very, very difficult. But we've certainly been a country characterized by lots of immigration, and whether that is responsible in any way for the incredible record of this country, I don't know, but I suspect that it was. And I think what Charlie would like to do is perhaps be the admitting officer, and it would work it would work pretty well if Charlie was. But in the absence of that, I think if we'd asked that question 200 years ago, and somebody said, with the outlook for development of farm machinery and tractors and combines and so on, meaning that 90% of the people on farms were going to lose their job, it would look terrible, wouldn't it? But our economy and our people, our system, has been remarkably ingenious in achieving whatever we have now, 160 million jobs, when throughout the period ever since 1776 we've been figuring out ways to get rid of jobs. That's what capitalism does, and it produces more and more goods per person. And we never know exactly where they're going to come from. I mean, I don't know what, if you were whatever occupation, well, if you were in the passenger train business, I mean, that was going to change. But we find ways in this economy to employ more and more people, and we've got now more people employed than ever in the history of the country, even though company after company, and particularly in heavy industry and that sort of thing, has been trying to figure out naturally how to get more productive all the time, which means turning out the same number of goods with fewer people, or turning out more goods with the same number. That is capitalism. I don't think you need to worry about American ingenuity running out. I mean, you look at people in all kinds of businesses, and they like to make money, but they really like to be inventive. They like to do things, and this economy, it works. It will continue to work, and it's very tough in certain industries, and there will be dislocations. We won't be making as many horseshoes and that sort of thing when cars come along and all of that. But we do find ways now to employ whatever we're employing, 155, whatever it is, million people, and supporting a population of 330 million people. When we started with 4 million people, with 80% of the labor
being employed on farms. So this system works, and it will continue to work. And I don't know what the next big thing will be. I do know there will be a next big thing. Charlie?
Well, we want to shift the scut work to the robots to the extent we can. That's what we've been doing, as Warren said, for 200 years. Nobody wants to go back to being a blacksmith or scooping along the street, picking up the horseman or whatever the hell people used to do. We're glad to have that work eliminated. And a lot of this worry about the future comes from leftists who worry terribly that the people at the bottom of the economic pyramid have had a little stretch when the people at the top got ahead faster. That happened by accident because we were in so much trouble that we had to flood the world with money and drive interest rates down to zero. And of course that drove asset prices up and helped the rich. Nobody did that because they suddenly loved the rich. It was just an accident, and it will soon pass. We want to have all this productivity improvement, and we shouldn't worry a little about the fact that one class or another is a little ahead at one stretch.
Charlie and I, we worked in a grocery store, and when people ordered a can of peas, we had ladders that we climbed up to reach the can of peas, and then we placed it in a folding box, and then we put it on a truck. And if you looked at the amount of food actually transferred between the producer and the person who consumed it, and the number of people involved in the transaction, it was, I don't know whether it was 1/3 or 1/4 or 1/5 as efficient as the best way now to get food delivered to you. And
the food was worse.
And my grandfather was distressed about the fact that this particular credit and delivery kind of store would be eliminated, and it was eliminated. But society progressed.
It's coming back.
Pardon?
It's coming back.
It's coming back, but more efficiently.
I know.
Yeah. Anyway, we've seen a little creative destruction, and frankly, we're glad that it freed us up to go into the investment business. It worked out better for us.
So this time I went back actually to 1942 when I bought my first stock as an illustration of all the things that have happened since 1942. We've had presidents, 7 Republicans, 7 Democrats. We've had world wars. We had 9/11. We had the Cuban Missile Crisis. We have all kinds of things. The best single thing you could have done on March 11th, 1942, when I bought my first stock, was just buy an index fund and never look at a headline, never think about stocks anymore, just like you would do if you bought a farm. You just buy the farm and let the tenant farmer run it for you. And I pointed out that if you'd put $10,000 in an index fund that reinvested dividends, and I paused for a moment to let the audience try and guess how much it amount to, and it would come to $51 million now. And the only thing you had to really believe in then is that America would win the war and that America would progress as it has ever since 1776, and that American business, if America moved forward, American business would move forward.
I will say this: I am higher on the existing social order than you are. There's always plenty wrong with a social order, and certainly there are places where ours is a lot more broken than it used to be. I don't think Warren and I have any wonderful solution to all the problems of the world, but wishing for $1 million instead of some more tangible short step is the wrong frame of mind. That isn't the way we got our $1 million.
Yeah. Well, I don't.
Warren might give a different answer, by the way. He's
No, I would agree with the wishing for a job. Makes a lot of sense to me, and figuring out how to get one and then going from there. But there is, and always has been. That doesn't mean it always should be, but there is a tremendous amount of inequality. What you don't want is an inequality of opportunity. There will be a lot of inequality in ability. A market system like we have turns out what people want. If they want to watch a heavyweight fight and they want to watch Mike Tyson, they're going to pay him $25 million for getting in the ring for a few minutes. And it produces what people like, and it produces in an abundance, and it's done very well in terms of production. It is much better to be in the bottom 20% in this country now than it was 50 years ago, and it's better to be in the bottom 20% of this country than in any other country. But it still isn't very satisfactory. The market system does not reward teachers. It does not reward it does not reward all kinds of people who do all kinds of useful things in any way comparable to how it will reward entertainers or people who can figure out the value of businesses or athletes or that sort of thing. A market system pays very big for something that will entertain them. People want to be entertained a good bit of the day, and pays better for people that will entertain than educate. I don't want to tinker with the market system. I don't think I should be telling people what they should want to do with their lives, but I do think that it's incumbent on the people that do very well under that system to be taxed in a manner that takes reasonable care of anybody that is not well adapted to that system, but that it's a perfectly decent citizen in every other regard. And that is, I don't want to start getting into comparable worth in terms of how I tax, but I do think that somebody like me that happens to just fit this system magnificently, but wouldn't be worth a damn in Bangladesh or someplace, because what I have wouldn't pay off there. Their system would not reward that. I think that we get from society. This society provides me with enormous rewards for what I bring to the game. And it does the same with Mike Tyson, and it does the same with some guy whose adenoids are right for singing or whatever it may be. And I don't want to tamper with that, but I do think those people who are getting all kinds of claim checks on the rest of society from that, I think there should be a system where people who are not well adapted to that system, but that are perfectly decent citizens in every other respect, do not really, fall through the slats on that. And I think progress has been made on that over the last 50 years, but I think we're far from a perfect society in that respect. And I hope more progress is made in the next 50 years. I don't think the wishing for the $1 million, though, is that it doesn't work that way. I think, but if you are lucky enough to have something that the market system rewards, you do very well here. And if you're unlucky enough to have something it doesn't reward, you do better now than you would have 30 or 40 years ago, and you do better than in other countries. But I can see where it seems very unjust to look at somebody else who has just a little different mix of talents that can achieve claim checks in a way that keeps them and the next 5 generations of their family in a position where they don't have to do very much.
I would say that I like a certain amount of social intervention that takes some of the inequality out of results in capitalism, but I hate with a passion rewarding anything that can be easily faked, because I think then people lie, and lying works, and the lying spreads, and I think your whole civilization deteriorates. If I were running the world, the compensation for stress under workman's compensation would be 0. Not because there isn't real stress, because there's no way to keep the fakery out if you reward stress at all.
There was a great article, and this applies to an earlier question. There was a very good article in Forbes about 1 issue ago that showed the occupational profile of the U.S. At a couple of different intervals going back to 1900. And one problem you can see just by looking at that profile is that if you assume 20% of the bottom 20%, however you measure it in terms of employability, whether it's measured by IQ or interest in working or energy level or whatever you want to do, they fit very well most of the jobs that were available 100 years ago. In other words, you could do most of the jobs, of which there were many, with relatively unimpressive mental abilities. And as jobs have changed, the profile of people hasn't changed. So there are more people that end up on the short end. Now, the good part of that is the society produces so much more that it can take care of those people one way or another. Now, the trick is to take care of them and make them not only feel, but be productive and be part of the act. And we've got enough product to do that, but the country turns out way more output than 50 or 100 years ago. We're not perfect at figuring out how to make the bottom 20 or 30% in terms of abilities fit a new changing job profile. I really recommend you look at that Forbes magazine, because if you think through the implications of those charts, I think you'll see what social problems have to be attacked.